this alternative method that we're going to be looking at, instead of using the TV booking system, which many of you guys I'm sure are using already, we're actually going to be looking at setting up an alternative method, which is going to be setting up a competition with what we call an independent start sheet, which I'll be going through in more detail. Some of you may or may not have used this in the past, so something may already be sort of familiar. But I'm just going to go through the process of basically setting this up and showing you how the sign up works. Okay. So in order to sort of set this independent T-sheet up as a sort of a temporary way to use different time intervals, I know some of you out there might be using, 8-minute intervals in your T-sheet. Some of you may be using 9 or 10, or a whole different variants of time intervals. So this method is essentially going to allow you to use whatever time interval that you wish on that particular day. It is sort of intended as a temporary measure. Obviously, like I said, if we were looking at changing the time interval entirely for all the way in the future, and we weren't going to go back to the original interval, then that's obviously we would do things slightly different, and I'm sure we'll cover that in a later demonstration at some point in the near future. But this one is going to start off by us just basically creating a competition. So you can see here I've logged into our demo support site, and we're going to go into admin and then competitions, which I've already done. And on the right hand side, I'm just going to set up just a basic demo competition just to get us started. So I'm just going to call this T-sheet. And if I put this for, say, I'll just do it for tomorrow's time. And obviously this is going to be on a sort of a daily basis. So it is, again, as I said, a temporary method for you to take teas and bookings with any sort of time interval.
Beth, could you bring my earpieces, please? Could you bring my earpiece?
And basically, it's just a temporary method just to do it on a particular day. If you wanted to do it again, like I said, on
my earpods
basis,
on the table.
Range,
on the table.
Obviously, that's something which we would look at. So let me just finish creating a competition. So I'll set that for both, so for all ages, and I'm just going to choose an entry group. Now, one thing to bear in mind is when we're setting up this with the entry group, obviously that is basically a list of categories. If your T's and bookings module is quite specific in terms of what categories you want to allow to make a booking, and which categories you don't, then we can look at, again, a future demonstration how the entry groups work, and you can customize those. I've set up my entry groups already to allow basically all playing categories. If your team and booking system works slightly differently, again, drop us a ticket and we can sort of look at that as a specific sort of situation. Okay. So I'm just going to go through, just finish doing this. So I'm going to put the course. It doesn't really matter what T colours I pick. Obviously, we're not going to be entering scorecards. This is purely for people to sign up with, but I do have to pick one anyway, just so it allows me to create the competition. So if I save that. Now, the first thing we're then going to do is I'm going to go into the start sheet page. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have already seen this screen before when you set up your competition start sheets, but we're not going to do a regular start sheet. We're actually going to click on this independent T-sheet button here. So when I select this, the screen changes. We do get this blue banner above the buttons that we're going to use to signify that it's an independent start sheet, not a regular T-sheet, and therefore doesn't go onto the main T's and bookings module. Okay. Now, when I select tea times, you get slightly different options than you would normally expect within a competition start sheet. So instead of picking, your start time, your end time, and that's about it, it would actually say, right, what time do you want your bookings to actually start from? I'm just going to keep mine as 8 o'clock in the morning. And then it asks you to pick what interval. So you can see I have a free range of doing whatever interval I wish. There's no restriction in this. You can type in whatever number you want without it affecting any existing teas and bookings or any teas and bookings going forward. So this is purely just for this day and just for this competition start sheet. Okay. Now I'm going to keep mine as 10-minute intervals, and then it asks you how many tea times that you want. So this is basically just, instead of going right in between 8 o'clock and 12 o'clock, you do need to actually say how many tea times you wish to have on the start sheet. I'm just going to keep it basic, and I'm just going to, let's just do 30. And that will be 30 tea times starting from 8 o'clock in the morning with a 10-minute interval. It will then ask you what holes you want to start off with. For most of you, if not all of you in here, this is probably just going to be the first and the 10th tee, or you might just do the first tee, depending on how you want to run this. I'm sure there are a couple of clubs out there that don't start from the 10th tee. They might do like the 9th or the 12th or something like that. So you just pick the tees that is relevant to. Okay. We then want to, as with a normal competition, pick what time, how many basically slots per time we actually want. Now, I know a lot of you have said that you're going to want to be limiting this to 2 balls and have no more than 2 people on the tee sheet at the same time, especially with this COVID-19 stuff going on. Obviously, when a lot of you sort of reopen after all this has happened, this may change. So for now, I'm going to pick 2, but you can just pick 2, 3, or 4. It is a minimum of 2. We can't just do 1 person, although I'm sure many of you will either do 2 or 4. So if I now click create tee times, that's going to create the times. So it looks almost like pretty much a normal start sheet, but we've got a start from 8 o'clock with our 10-minute intervals and the 30 times. So it goes up until 12:50. Again, as with a regular competition, if I then go, oh, actually, no, I need less or more times, again, there is the option for you to just keep adding them. So I can say, right, I can just keep adding until 1:30 or 1:40, and I can just keep extending them. So you're not locked down. You can always sort of modify that if needed. Okay, so that's all we really need to be doing for our start sheet. So again, pretty much like a regular competition start sheet, but make sure you pick the independent option to begin with. And then it gives you free reign to basically do whatever you want or whatever interval you wish. We're also going to have tee times visible to members. That means if anyone is signing up to this daily tee sheet that we're going to create, they can see, as with a normal competition, who is in what times already. So if they say, oh, well, my friend, Mr. Smith is at 8 o'clock, I'm going to choose 8 o'clock as well. You don't have to have that on, but for teas and bookings, I would imagine the majority, if not all of you, are going to want the tee times visible to members switched on. Okay. So apart from that, should be basically almost like a regular competition start sheet. Should be fairly straightforward. So once you've got this in place, if there are any other restrictions that you want to do, like reserving a couple of times or masking them so they can't be selected, absolutely fine. You still have the mask option and you still have the reserve option as you would with a regular competition. Okay. Now, once this has been done, we then need to go to the sign up options. And again, most of these options you would have probably seen or used plenty of times before if you're setting up competitions within the club. So this is going to be no different really to setting up a competition. Okay. So we go through here and I can say if you want, you can make the entrance list viewable. Remember, you already on the start sheet have tee times visible to members as we clicked here. So that is already enabled. So you may actually not even require the entrance list. If you can already see what times they're playing at, you don't really need to worry about them just seeing a list of names separately. So in this case, I'm just going to leave that off. But the 2 most important options is the roll-up entry at touchscreen, which means that they can go to the touchscreen. Obviously, I know this won't be a case at the moment with clubs being shut and people not really wanting to touch the touchscreen for, obviously health and safety reasons with COVID-19. But that way, if you do allow that on, it means that people can sign up on the day of the event and say, oh, well, I've arrived at the club at 9 o'clock. I want to go out and go and play a tea time. Oh, there's one free straight away, so I can just roll up. Now, the main one is the advanced/web or advanced web/touchscreen sign up. We're going to switch that to on. And I'm going to open up the bookings from today. I know the competition I've set up is going to be for tomorrow. But again, if the competition was, for next Friday, obviously just close the sign up sort of on the day or before. Exactly the same as you would with any regular competition. Okay. Now, the tea allocation options, this is the one that we really do want to be changing. So we wouldn't have the tea times assigned by administrator. We want them to actually pick what times they're going to be going out and playing on the course. So we're actually going to change it to players can book their playing partners in at the same time. So what that essentially means is I can now pick what time I want to play, and I have the option, if I so choose, to book in my playing partner at the same tea time, in the same way that they would use our regular teas and booking system. You can choose the option to book it themselves and one other, but really you want it to be this option, so they're always booking the exact same time, and it almost works as if they booked a regular 2-ball on our teas and booking system. Okay. Now, once you've done that option, we've opened the sign up, then sign up and when. We just need to basically just save the sign up options. So at this point, it's almost as if we're just running a regular competition. The only change is to making sure the sign up options are set as such and the independent start sheet. So far, those are the only real changes that you'll notice. Okay. Now, from a member's perspective, they can now either open up the app on their mobile phone. Unfortunately, I can't show you the app on this demonstration because it's on my laptop, but I can show you from a member's perspective. Obviously, they would then just go to home, go into competitions, upcoming, as if it was a regular competition. Obviously, we're using this as a temporary method for booking a tee sheet. Again, if we were looking at a more long-term option, then we would go down the route of changing the course setup, entirely, or maybe setting a brand new course. Again, as I explained earlier, that's going to be done in a further demonstration. At the moment, I just want to keep things very straightforward and do this option here, and then we can organize another demonstration at a later date. Okay. So the members got into competitions, they've got into upcoming, or use the app to do the same. They click online sign up. Again, same with any competition sign up that they've done in the past. So it should be no difference for the member. They should be well, sort of versed in using this method. So I go, yep, I want to continue. And then it asks me to select the time. Again, as if it was a regular competition, I'm going to choose 8 o'clock. And it says, do I want to book in one of my playing partners at the same time? At this point, I could either say no and just play on my own, at which point someone else could potentially make a booking and join in at 8 o'clock as well. Or I can select yes, which I'm going to do. And then it gives me the option to book in my playing partner. So I'm going to click available on slot 2. And again, as with a competition, I was going to ask me to enter the first 3 letters of my playing surname. So do be aware, this is obviously because the way I've set it up, this is purely for members. This doesn't account for obviously members' guests because they won't be part of the system or won't be on the system. And again, because it's a members only, this doesn't include visitors as well. So this is just for members. So let's just type in the first 3 letters of one of the demo profiles that are set up. There we go. So that's one of them there. So I select my partner. And it says, right, 8 o'clock, Tension Golf Sport, playing with my partner. And then I just click finish. So from a member's perspective, it's exactly the same as if they were signing up to a competition online. again, they can use the app to do this same process as well. At this point, I can either withdraw, if I choose that I need to drop out of my Tees and bookings for whatever reason. There is an option to obviously disable withdrawing, but I would assume that mostly if you are using this method, you want to give people the option to withdraw as well, to then free up the time for someone else. I can look at the playing partners, have a look at my booking, or I can just go back to the home screen. So that's all we really need to be doing, again, to set up this temporary method to get around having to sort of remove existing bookings and manage the course and modify the setup for the purpose of, let's say, just a period of a few months, maybe even just for 1 month or 2 months. Obviously, with the current sort of crisis going on, the pandemic, we don't know how long this is going to be. So this is really an alternative temporary method to setting up everything else. We've already got a number of clubs using this. I believe there is a guide that's been written. So I'll see once this is ended and we upload the video, I'll see if we can upload the written instructions to what we've just gone through as well. Now, there is another thing I wanted to sort of look at as well. Obviously, the purpose of the demonstration, what we've just gone through, is what we really wanted to focus on today. But there's just a bit of extra information that I wanted to give you guys, just to give you more information about how our courses are set up, how we create the tee times actually on a permanent basis for a course. I know I've had a lot of questions regarding when, someone might mention the word whole groups and intervals and changing them. So when we initially set up a course on the system, so I go through admin and settings, and I go to manage courses, you'll see I've got a list of the courses that I have here. Now, our main one, the till support course, obviously for each of you, you'll probably have your main 18-hole course. Some of you may have more than one course, and you may also have a bunch of 9-hole courses for qualifying and non-qualifying purposes. Now, let's say we've got our main course set up. Now, there's a button that obviously we will see as Intelligent Golf staff, but you guys don't actually set up. So what we do when you add a course is we go into here and we give it a hole group, which you can see where it says front 9 holes and the back 9 holes. So this is something that we as Intelligent Golf staff will set up for you whenever you create a new course. The purpose of this hole group is to say how long it takes to complete the front 9 holes and the back 9 holes, or slightly different, if you go off, let's say, the 1st and 10th or 1st and 7th, or however your golf course is configured. So we will actually set up this hole group, and the way that myself or one of my colleagues would do this is by going into Tees and bookings, and again, we get an extra option that you guys won't actually see, and we set this up, and we'll say, right, well, this is our till support 1st and the 10th, and the whole group is set at 2 hours. So essentially, if I were to make a booking on the first tee, on the main till support course at, let's say, 10 o'clock in the morning, the system will know that I should be getting round to the 10th tee 2 hours later. So I book at 10, at 12 o'clock, I then get round to the back 9. Or if I book on the back 9, again, it's 2 hours round to the first. We do this for various reasons. The biggest one, obviously, is to try and prevent people, starting on the 10th when there's someone coming round to the 10th who's already halfway through their round. That also means that this whole group must be divisible by your main tee interval. So let's say if we're 8-minute intervals, which seems to be a common, obviously not all of you this will follow, but 8 minutes tends to be the most common interval that I see. Now it knows that obviously 2 hours is divisible by 8 minutes. So it knows that if I book at 10 o'clock, there is a time on the back 9 for 12 o'clock. Now, if I wanted to then change my interval, this is where it can get a little bit tricky. So if we wanted 10 minutes absolutely fine. We can remove all of, or when I say remove, the clubs would need to remove any existing bookings, that's tee bookings, society event bookings, and competition start sheets from the tee sheet. We then remove the existing tee sheets and recreate them with the new interval. Now, if that matches, we can do that, and that's absolutely fine. The issue can sometimes arise that when we get, when you want to use an interval which is not divisible by the whole group, this is when we actually have to go through creating a brand new course, and that's what we'll probably focus on in a different demonstration. The reason being is if I wanted, let's say, 12 minutes, that isn't divisible by 2 hours or, or 13 minutes or whatever it might be. So when you book at 10 o'clock, if there was a 10 o'clock time, there wouldn't be a time that matched on the back 9. Now, we can't change the whole group because that affects any existing bookings that you may put in on the old interval. So that's at the point where we actually need to look at it and say, right, well, let's cease all booking on the original course from a particular date, and then we move onto a brand new course, usually with the same name. So the old course becomes redundant, the new course then takes effect, and that new course has its own whole group with a different whole group time that is divisible by the new interval. So that's where it can sometimes be a little bit tricky, obviously, moving existing bookings across, removing old bookings to then add them on the new interval. So there can be, depending on, I would say a per club basis, depending on the situation, that there's different things that we have to consider. Obviously, we don't want to affect any existing bookings or cause any issues with those. So that's at the point where we would look at a new course if changing the interval is something you wanted to do on a more permanent basis. Okay. Again, we'll probably schedule another demonstration going forward, in the near future, where we do look at that in more detail. But essentially, those are the two methods that we can use to change interval. We can use either the permanent method of a new course. For this demonstration, that's why I wanted to stick on the independent tee sheets, because again, in this situation, a lot of you are just changing the time intervals on a temporary basis. Doing it on a temporary basis, especially just on a short term, creating an independent start sheet within a competition is much more effective. Now, there is one more thing that I will cover very, very quickly before the meeting hits 30 minutes, because we are limited. And that is, for those of you who, obviously, I know a lot of you have shut the course, and some people have been asking me, how do I just stop all teas and bookings on the system? Best way to do it, going to admin, going to teas and bookings. On the left-hand side, you've got TeeTime settings. Now in here, it's split up into 3 sections. You've got general at the top, you've got member booking, and then you've got visitor booking. If you want to cease all booking immediately without having to delete your booking rules or anything like that, then simply just make sure this is set to no on visitor booking. So go yeah, no. And the same for members, we can just set it to no. And then by me saving the settings, that prevents any member, any visitor from being able to make a booking on the system, a generic TeeTime booking. For members, it will then disappear from the My Golf option, so it will no longer show. For visitors, what we would probably do is then make a change on the web page, so they couldn't then click the Book a TeeTime link that most of you will probably have on the website. Okay.